This sermon is about shame. And I'm going to start with an illustration from that time of life that seems to invest everyone with some sort of secret shame, and that is middle school. So imagine you're a month or two into 7th grade. One morning before school, you look in the mirror and grimace at half a dozen new pimples which have colonized your forehead during the night. You try to comb your bangs over the spot, but your hair just won't stay. So you resign yourself to the fate of being called pizza face all day. You walk into school wishing your forehead were in a less conspicuous area of your body, but you know it's not, so instead you concentrate on making yourself less conspicuous instead. Halfway through the day, everything is going fine. No one has mentioned your acne. But then, on the way back to class after lunch, the day takes a turn. You and your classmates are waiting outside your 4th period room when someone brings up the hot TV show that everyone's watching. About half a dozen people are about to get this reference in this room. In my day, it was Dawson's Creek. Anybody? Yes, I see some nods from the late 30s, early 40s crowd. I'm sure you can come up with one yourselves for your time, or radio show maybe, Mr. Spillane. Happy 101st birthday, by the way. So the show was on last night, and something terribly important and life-altering happened to the main character. Everyone's discussing the episode, and you just smile and nod, hoping against hope that no one asks you your opinion, because your mom doesn't let you watch that show. But your classmates don't know that, and if they did, they'd have another reason to make fun of you. But of course, someone does ask. And you stammer out something generic about the show, but it's obvious you don't watch. Your classmates start laughing, and you can feel your face getting flushed, which only makes the pimples redder. You will the teacher to open the classroom door, but she doesn't, so you race off to the bathroom to be alone with your shame. So, show of hands, how many of you remember a day similar to this one, back when you were in that Lord of Flies-esque jungle known as middle school? Anybody? Yeah, I thought so. So you want to know the worst thing about that feeling of shame from long ago? The feeling of shame is still there. Hidden, perhaps, but there. The context may be different, the constellation of catalysts may be more grown up, but the disease of shame has, from a tender age, infected each and every one of us. Shame is the feeling that prompts us to want to hide from God, from the world, and especially from ourselves. The disease of shame invades the secret places within us and then starts whispering incessantly, "You aren't good enough. You aren't worthy. You are defective. How could you possibly think you measure up? And the worst of all, you are a mess and a failure. How could you possibly think God or anyone else could ever love someone as shameful as you?" I'm sure these debilitating thoughts were running through the mind of the younger son as he fed the pigs. In today's gospel lesson, Jesus tells the famous story of the young man who squanders his inheritance in a far-off land. He is destitute when a famine hits, so he hires himself out to a pig farmer. On those days when the hollowness of hunger is worst, he longs to eat the pig's slop. And Jesus chose his details well, for there isn't a much more shameful position than for a good Jewish boy to be anywhere near such unclean animals. Jews were never to eat pork, let alone touch the pig. And here is the younger son, cut off from his family, wallowing in the mud, hungry, unclean, and ashamed. And you can hear his shame whispering to him, can't you? "How could you possibly think your father will take you back as his son, you worthless swine?" His shame convinces him that all of his mistakes, all of his bad choices, all of his ruinous living amount to too much for his father to forgive. Another whisper, how could you possibly be reconciled to your dad with all this disastrous baggage? The younger son agrees with his shame and decides that his father would never bring him back into the family, but that maybe his father's generosity would extend to hiring him on as a laborer. So he sets off for home, and then something happens that the younger son does not expect. Something that his shame had convinced him was impossible. When he is still a speck on the horizon, his father sees him coming and races to meet him. His father runs flat out, as if he can't bear one more minute estranged from his son. And when they meet, the son begins his prepared speech. But Jesus is a master storyteller. Did you notice? The son begins his prepared speech, but his father doesn't even give him time to finish it. The loving father is already preparing a welcome feast because his son was lost and has been found. How many of us have let the voice of shame drive us into hiding? How many of us still have the disease of shame eating away at our capacity to give and receive love? How many of us have let our shame convince us that we are unworthy of God's attention? I'd hazard to guess that we've all been there, feeling like the pimply kid in 7th grade or like the younger son among the pigs. Perhaps your shame starts whispering when you look at all your bills and realize that this is the month you will have to go to the food bank. Or when you say something hurtful to your spouse during an argument. Or when your colleagues don't think to invite you for lunch. Or when your date stands you up. Or when you look in the mirror. Whatever the source of your shame, please believe that God, like the loving father in the parable, is running flat out to meet you in the midst of it. Your shame might tell you to hide. Your shame might tell you that you are not worthy of God's effort, but your shame is lying to you. There is no shame big enough to scare God away. You will never be so defective that God stops desiring to repair you. You will never be so lost that God can't find you. And when God finds you, you can join God in loving you. The you that God has always and will always love, no matter what. With the love of God burning away your shame, you might realize that despite what society says, there's nothing personally shameful about poverty. That's shameful for society. You might realize that advertisers get big bucks from so-called beauty companies to make you feel shame when you look in the mirror. You might realize that rather than short-circuiting the argument with a shameful low blow, you can stay in a fight with your spouse until you come out the other side stronger for it. Without the shame whispering in your mind, perhaps you'll ask for help when trying to make ends meet. Perhaps you'll look in the mirror and see the beauty looking back from your precious and beloved soul. Perhaps you will listen and learn and stick with a tough conversation until you reach a breakthrough together. So the next time your shame threatens to engulf you with its incessant negative whispering, look to the horizon. See the dawn break. See the sunlight racing toward you. And know that God has already run out to meet you in the midst of your shame. God has already enfolded you in a compassionate embrace. And God has already welcomed you deeper into God's family as a beloved child who was lost and has been found. Amen.